The High Court today sentenced Tan Sri Isa Samad to 6 years in prison and fined him 15.4 million ringgit. The former Felda chairman was found guilty of 9 counts of corruption involving more than 3 million ringgit relating to a hotel purchase in Sarawak. In his decision, Justice Muhammad Nazlan said Isa's defence had failed to raise any doubt in the prosecution's case against him. However, Nazlan granted a stay of execution against the prison sentence pending an appeal, but ordered for Isa's bail to be increased from 800,000 ringgit to 1.5 million ringgit. So what does this decision mean to our ongoing efforts against corruption? We spoke to Datuk Sri Akbar Sata, President Malaysia Association of Certified Fraud Examiners.
Well, this is another great day in nation's war against corruption. Unfortunately, corruption is still becoming another pandemic in Malaysia. In fact, the country's future well-being at the end of the day depends on how effectively we can flatten the curve on graph, not unlike that against COVID-19, as we know, right? We also salute our judiciary for its firm stand against corruption. In fact, the judiciary is also a vital institution in our anti-corruption fight. Today's conviction on Tan Sri Isa, of course, once again, is a stern warning on those who abuse their powerful and position in exchange for millions of illegal money. Lastly, I would like to congratulate MACC for doing a good job and conducting investigation without fear and favor. Thank you once again.
Staying on corruption, a former chairman of Mara Incorporated is expected to face 22 charges over a property scandal in Australia. Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Chief Commissioner Datuk Sri Azam Baki confirmed that the suspect, a 65-year-old, have been arrested and will be brought to court to face trial on Friday.
The individual, who is a dato', is alleged to have received bribes of 33.45 million ringgit over the purchase of Dudley House in Melbourne by Mara Inc. in 2013. The property scandal was first revealed by Australian media, which alleged that the property was purchased at an inflated price. A Malaysian man living in Australia has been charged with bribing a foreign officer relating to the sale of the student dormitory to Mara Inc.
Clearly, combating corruption is a never-ending process. We want Malaysia to be free of corruption. But looking at the bigger picture, what is the plan? We have the National Anti-Corruption Plan, or the NACP, mooted in 2018. But just how much progress in eradicating corruption has emerged from this initiative? There are a number of criticisms levelled against the current administration. The latest, a drop in Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index ranking. We approached the Centre for Governance, Integrity and Anti-Corruption, the custodian of the NACP plan, and they have assured they will come and talk to us in due time. Stay tuned for that, as we will keep a close eye on the issue of eradicating corruption. 2020 has been described as a lost year for students. The Education Ministry has just released an updated manual for home-based learning, which includes a guide on scheduling teaching and learning from home. But with no end in sight for the pandemic, is this enough to solve some of the challenges faced by students, parents and teachers? Farhana Sheikh has a story.
Students were supposed to be back in school, but many aren't. 1 year into the pandemic, are we any closer to ensuring our students are not falling behind? We know the many challenges of home-based learning. Lack of access to learning devices such as laptop and tablets. Lack of access to reliable internet, especially for kids in remote areas. Many parents still struggle to keep their kids focused on schoolwork, while they themselves try to focus working from home. And for teachers, keeping students motivated is a real challenge. Everyone is trying their best to work through an impossible situation. But just how much learning may be lost due to COVID-19 school closure?
Our young school-going children are considered to be a kind of a lost generation. They did not absorb much of their lesson that have been given through PDPR. And I could see that there's a kind of divide, a knowledge divide and skill divide between those who are really ready or used to home-based learning, then perhaps those who are using or familiarized with the conventional type of learning. I believe this home-based learning is going to be used even after pandemics, COVID-19. Government have to allocate some kind of budget, reliable budget, and allocation of staff readily available or retrain the staff to perhaps to monitor and to coach and to make sure effectively the home-based learning is available to all, especially to rural and the poor people.
We also spoke to Bukit Mertajam MP Stephen Sim to talk about how civil society and leaders are stepping up to address the learning gaps exacerbated by the pandemic.
In my constituency, Bukit Mertajam, we recently launched this program called Asal Cik Mau Pi Sekolah. The first thing is we are offering free printing service to students to print their homeworks and school notes. Number two, we are also providing them free online tuition. And our online tuition, the focus is to have smaller classes. For example, 1 teacher to 10 students, because we know there is an issue of the lack of quality interaction between student and teacher in the e-learning environment. Thirdly, we are also providing them free top-ups. Online learning are mostly, especially in the rural community or B40 community, they are mostly done via mobile internet connection. NGOs, individuals such as Ustaz Abid Liu, or even individuals, members of parliament, state assemblymen, and the society in general, providing or distributing e-learning devices, because there is a gap due to the lack of action from the government. The new normal requires us to think differently, even in terms of education, how we deliver education, and this is where government especially need to play a role.
The learning gap is set to widen as the pandemic continues to hamper children's education. But given the right help, students can regain lost ground.
We'll take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Awani Tonight with updates on COVID-19. New infections have gone back up with 4,284 cases reported today. The Health Ministry also announced 18 new deaths, bringing the total COVID-19 fatalities to 809. 13 new clusters were detected, 12 in the workplace and 1 in a detention centre. Selangor topped the list with most new cases after recording 1,572 cases, followed by Johor and Kuala Lumpur. Tun Dr. Mahathir today claimed that Tommy Thomas knew nothing about his resignation as the 7th Prime Minister. This came as a response to excerpts about him in a memoir written by the former Attorney General.
In a blog posting, Mahathir stressed that Datuk Seri Wan Azizah's name was never proposed as interim Prime Minister. Mahathir said that after his resignation, the King had suggested for him to become interim Prime Minister and that Wan Azizah could not hold the post as the Pakatan Harapan government had already collapsed. Mahathir added that he resigned because Bersatu rejected his advice to not leave Pakatan Harapan.
Syed Saddiq's Muda party accused Home Minister Datuk Seri Hamzah Zainuddin of making factual errors regarding the party's name. He said that Muda, the acronym for Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, is a party for all races and ages and not only for youths.
Previously, Hamzah said that the Registry of Societies rejected Muda's registration as its draft constitution was not in order with the Schedule 1 of the Societies Act 1966. Hamzah said that Muda has set the minimum age of party members to 16 but failed to set a minimum age limit. Muda said that its constitution has been updated, checked by ROS, stating that those who wish to become members must be at least 18 years old.
Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin will make a two-day official visit to Indonesia beginning tomorrow at the invitation of Indonesian President Joko Widodo. Both leaders are expected to discuss economic cooperation as well as joint efforts in combating the COVID-19 pandemic.
This will be Muhyiddin's first official visit abroad as Prime Minister since he assumed the office in March 2020. Among other issues to be discussed during the short trip, international discrimination against palm oil exports, the issue of transboundary haze, best practices for the use of COVID-19 vaccines, and potential travel bubble between both countries. The delegation would follow a strict health protocol, including undergoing swab tests before departure, on arrival, as well as quarantine upon returning to Malaysia on Friday evening.
On to international news. With the latest crisis unfolding in Myanmar, the police have filed charges against Aung San Suu Kyi for allegedly illegally importing communications equipment. According to police, at least 10 walkie-talkie radios and other communication devices that had been used without permission were found at Suu Kyi's home in the capital, Naypyidaw. Suu Kyi is expected to be detained until February 15th. Myanmar's army seized power on Monday on the grounds of a fraud in the November election, which Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy Party won in a landslide. Yet another bushfire struck the land down under, this time in Australia's fourth largest city, Perth.
At least 70 homes were destroyed and hundreds evacuated as bushfire on the outskirts of Perth continues to grow and threaten communities. The Warraloo fire, which started on Monday, had razed more than 9,000 hectares of farm and woodland by early Wednesday. Perth and its surrounding had been in lockdown since Sunday, but those threatened by the fire were exempted from lockdown rules so they could evacuate.
More news on Australia. Microsoft says they are willing to step up to fill the void if Google follows through on a threat to turn off its search engine in Australia. This comes as the government proposes a new law to force tech giants like Google and Facebook to pay for news content.
Google and Facebook, who disagree with the law, said that they would withdraw services if the regulations go ahead. Microsoft, on the other hand, said it supports Australia's plans and would help small businesses transfer their advertising to Bing if Google quits the country. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison confirmed he had spoken to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella about Bing replacing Google in Australia.
Founder of Amazon Jeff Bezos steps down as Chief Executive Officer after 30 years holding the post. Bezos will be transitioning to the role of Executive Chair in the third quarter of the year.
The second richest man in the world will be handing the CEO post to Andy Jassy, who runs Amazon's cloud computing business. On the same day Amazon announced Bezos would step down, the company reported making a record profit in the last 3 months of 2020, and its quarterly revenue shot past $100 billion for the first time. Bezos' riches have also swelled. His stake in Amazon is currently worth about $180 billion.
That is all we have for you on Awani tonight. Coming up on Consider This, saving lives and livelihoods. Is it time to rethink current strategies in facing the pandemic? Thank you for watching. I am Cynthia Ng. We'll see you tomorrow night.